Buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
The Michael Dukes Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Dukes Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Here's my rifle, there's my gun. This is for fighting, this is for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Oh, yeah. Good morning. It's Friday. Stand by for guns. Yes, it is Firearms Friday. Your chance to sound off on issues of a 2A nature right here on the Michael Dukes Show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or translator, and around the world at michaeldukeshow.com on the internet. It is, man, it's been a week. It has been a week, and I've been looking forward to this day for the entire week. This is the chance to let our hair down a little bit and talk about, what I think is probably one of the most important amendments in these United States, the right to keep and bear arms. The one right, as old Chuck Heston just said there, the one right that allows all the other rights to exist. That's really what it's all about. I mean, we can have the first and the third and the fourth and the fifth, and probably most people can't really, tell you what all those are, but they can tell you that that Second Amendment, without that Second Amendment, we wouldn't have those other rights. This goes back to Robert Heinlein and his old assertion that I used to love. Heinlein is just a fantastic author, but his old assertion that a polite society, an armed society, is a polite society. And I think that is, I think there's some truth to that. I think that we as a nation would not be nearly as free as we are today. And again, with all the warts and the blisters and the bruises and the problems that we have here in America, we are still the freest nation on the face of the earth. Now, somebody is immediately going to email me now and drop me some link to some freedom index from some think tank that says, America's not as free. Look at this. They're not as free. Well, name me one other nation in the world right now where people are literally dying to still get into it, right? Okay, so I mean, I'm sure that there is some out there. There is some criteria that some bookworm has come up with that shows that some countries are better on certain things than America than and I'm sure that there are. But the bottom line is that let's look at America through the lens of what everybody else sees, and pretty much everybody still wants to get in and be part of it. I mean, it's just how it is. But we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be in the position that we are to be that shining light on the hill or the last great bastion of freedom or whatever else you want to call us. We wouldn't be here without that citizen's right to keep and bear arms, because that is that's an implicit check on politicians. Now, we talked a lot about this, for years, but it seems like over the last couple months, the theme has come out repeatedly. That what I've taken to calling the politician's disease, which is somehow that they know better than you how to run your life, spend your money, raise your kids. I mean, all of the different stuff. That somehow all of this stuff, that they just know, they just implicitly by the grace of the Creator, that somehow they are blessed and deigned with special knowledge to know exactly how to. I mean, it's just it's the nature of politicians. We've often talked about how it seemed like the political class in America, which the founders and framers never intended to create a political class. I don't know if most folks understand that if you go back and you read the writings of the founders, and they talk specifically about citizen legislators, and they did not expect people to become full-time politicians. But I mean, I guess if there's one problem that we could point back to the founders and say, you guys screwed this up, is that they just didn't see it. They didn't see the nature of people and bureaucracies and government to become what they are, which essentially means they're self-fulfilling, they're self-sustaining, and that they grow by their very nature. And therefore, you see those things go on, and people today, all of a sudden, now you have this political class. I mean, what I call the nouveau riche nobility, right? We all used to be just regular people. We were all just citizens. But now there are some animals that are more equal than others, right? The politicians. And whether that's through just the way they feel or the way people treat them or anything else, the bottom line is that they are supposed to be servants to us. They're supposed to serve the public. And instead, they've all come down with this disease of somehow they know better than us how we should live our lives. But there's a caveat to that. And that caveat is embodied in the Second Amendment. Because they I'm sure that there are many politicians over the years that have wanted to do certain things in this country to get us back on track. That all of a sudden, we just need, we just need X, Y, or Z. If we could just all kumbaya and come together and follow my lead and do the things that I say, I'm sure that the country would just be better off. But we've got all these pesky liberties and freedoms and things that, all these people are so married and wedded to their liberty, I can't believe it. If they just listened to me, life would be better. But in the back of their mind, throughout all these years, throughout all these decades, and into the last 2 centuries, politicians have had this still small voice whispering in the back of their mind that says, well, you can go this far, but you shouldn't go any further because, these people are armed, and if you push them too far, they'll push back. And so that's what I mean when I'm talking about this implicit check, this implicit threat, implied threat, that you can only go so far before Americans start to push back. And when they push back, they have the opportunity to push back hard because we were raised with that ideal of rugged individualism and self-reliance and individual liberty and the fact that we can take care of ourselves. Now, some of that's been bred out of us over the years. We see a lot of that today in the, in the schools and in the colleges and everything else. It's like everybody's looking for the government to solve all their problems instead of, looking in the mirror and figuring out what they need to do for themselves. But the bottom line is that Second Amendment has held back these people who believe that somehow, some way, only with the direct benevolent intervention of government will society move forward. And so, we can thank the founders for that. We can thank the founders for the idea that every man and every woman, every able-bodied adult should have the ability to arm themselves and protect themselves from enemies, foreign and domestic. I mean, let's face it, the people who wrote this Constitution, they understood what was going on. I mean, they were in the midst of breaking away from the mother country, right, from Mother England. They understood the right to bearing arms. They understood what it took. I mean, the shot heard round the world at Lexington and Concord was really a fight. I don't know if most of you know this. It was really a fight over gun control. The British were on their way to seize the magazine, which was full of shot, because the communities in those times, they stored all the powder and the shot in one location for the community because, you know, it was explosives and they were worried about it and everything else. So most of the places, they had a magazine that had powder and shot in it. That was kind of the community area. That's where you kept everything so you didn't blow up your house and burn everybody, you know, burn the whole village down. And the English were on their way to seize the magazine and take it away. And that was the final straw for many of those people, because then they understood that they would have no way to fight back. I mean, that's where we're at today. We're at the, you know, we would look back at that crossroads, and if we can understand history through that lens, we will see that it has always been about trying to disarm people who want self-determination and freedom. But they're finding that is not so popular a position. Even Joe Biden, the Muppet in Chief, even he has decided that he's going to back off some of the more crazy gun control proposals they've talked about. Even though it plays well to his base, he's finding that the rest of Americans don't really have an interest in that. That not only are they not interested, they're absolutely out there either fighting against it or ignoring it. And this leads us back to the question again about creating an Irish democracy, which basically is where politicians create laws that become so stupid. And we talked about this yesterday with the whole chicken thing, which there's some, you know, and there's some interesting similarities we might get into later on the program between this whole registration of chickens and the firearms thing, for sure. But we talked about this yesterday with the chicken thing. Well, laws that become so ridiculous or are so on their face anti-freedom that people just start to ignore them. And we're seeing that. We're seeing that across the country. That people are starting to get to the point to where they're like, nope, not going to comply with that one. Nope, not going to comply with that one. And pretty soon you lose your faith and trust in government. And look at what's happening. I mean, the polling that's been done by Pew and many others who have been polling these questions for years have found an all-time low as far as people's faith in government. And I just don't think it's coincidental. So, yeah, the Second Amendment. It is the one right that has allowed rights to exist. It is the one right that holds the politicians in check from doing even more of the crazy big government things that they've wanted to do, I'm sure, over the years. And it's the one speed bump on the way to basically killing and crushing liberty. So yeah, we should fight for it. Yeah, we should be paying attention to it. Yeah, we should be watching it. It should be right up there at the top of our priority list, quite honestly. That's where it should be. All right, we're going to continue on. I got some headlines. We're going to open up the phone lines for gun Q&A. Questions and answers, where there is no such thing as a dumb gun question. We're going to pick that up here in the next segment. So if you want to talk about firearms, I mean, even Anthony here, he's been going on this morning about a new Chiappa Triple Crown. Is it a triple 12 gauge? I don't even know what it is. We'll talk about that and more as we go through here. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Phone lines are open right now. The Pivotel call-in line at 433-3150 if you want to get in the queue for Gun Q&A. Back with more right after this.
our light, our guide, and our trusted friend.
Michael Duke Show.
Well, hi there, ho there, hey there. How are you guys doing? Just another beautiful... Oh, it's a trilling. Okay. Chiapa Triple Crown is a trilling. It's a 3-barreled. Oof, man, $2,000. Dang. Triple made, break action, 12 gauge, chambered in blah, 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 blah. Okay. But you're upset that you can't fire all 3 barrels at once. Oh, man. Oh, man. Sorry, need to know what happened to Squarebanks last night. Anyone know? I don't know what happened with the chicken ordinance last night. I mean, it's not the chicken ordinance, but you know what I mean. I have no idea. Maybe somebody can hit us with it and tell us what happened. I'm interested in knowing. Got a couple comments, one from Jason's on YouTube asking, and Terry's on Facebook asking what happened. How many have said not complying have died a slow to agonizing death on the ventilator? It's neither whether you comply, it's whether you have the sense of critical thinking. And it's their choice, Harold. I really don't care. It's their choice. They made a decision. I've made a decision not to be vaccinated. If I end up in the hospital with some complications, that's on me. It really is. That's the thing. Horse ointment. Man, you are such an idiot sometimes. In a loving, gentle way, I say that to you. You know it's not horse ointment, but you just love poking the bear. You just love that. If your government stood in front of the mirror, would they see the British 300 years ago? No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't see that. They'd see something far better, Rick. They'd see, because they know better than you. Remember, they know better than you. How to do all those things and all that. Was looking for the proposed chicken ordinance last evening to share in some of the more subversive groups. There was a link yesterday on the show, and I don't have the link here right in front of me, Brian, but there was a link to the North Star Borough website to go over that. Okay. Let's see what else is going on. I saw my dad earlier. Hi, Dad, if you're still listening. Just look at Australia. I mean, yeah, look at what's happening in Australia there. Now that they've all been disarmed and now they're under the lock, the jackboots of the government there. Who are these gun engineers that flippantly decided firing 3 12-gauge barrels at once was too much? I demand restitution. I'm with you. I am with you on that, my friend. Why not? If I want to blow all 3 barrels off at once, it should be my God-given right to do so. Even though I may break myself and I may break my gun and I may break myself, it's my God-given right to do so. Gun registration right after you register your chicken. That's the thing, right? The 2A debate is just professional stupidity on the left. Let's take away all the scary guns and trust the government to regulate us with guns. I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, it's a government's made up of people, and people are flawed, and therefore the government is flawed. I mean, we already know that. That's how it's right. Czechia became the first former communist to have adopted the Second Amendment. They adopted something similar to the Second Amendment, although it does not have all the bells and whistles that we have. Okay. I have no Mediterranean drownings. I have no idea what that's about. Okay, getting ready to jump back into it here. We're about 60 seconds out or so. So do me a favor. Would you like and share this show today? Like and share on Facebook. Also, like and follow the show on Facebook so you get notifications. And then, if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. That's how we get it done. That's how we get things going. My chickens are armed and refuse to be chipped. What's a guy to do? Really? I mean, you can't fight the chicken insurrection, you know? You can't fight back against that. Those things are vicious, man. Chicken with an AK. Reminds me of that video that's going around of the eagle walking around on the ground where they put painted arms on him with machine guns. Have you seen that? That's hysterical. Okay, let's get back into it here. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Like and share the show. Let's do it. Okay. Well, let's get into some of the headlines, shall we? I think we shall. I think that's a good idea. But before we do that, let me tell you about one of the sponsors on the program here. In fact, our newest sponsor. These guys are pretty cool. Pretty darn cool, man. Have you checked out the new thing from our friends at Satellite West? It's called the Bivy Stick. How would you like to turn your cell phone into a satellite communication device? You can do it. It's easy. The Bivy Stick is the answer. I mean, for $199, you get this little tiny device that is about half the size of your cell phone. And it has it's what they call a short burst data device, and you tether it to your phone via Bluetooth. And then regardless of where you are, regardless of what you're doing, regardless of how far the nearest cell phone tower is away from you, you can now have contact with the outside world. You can send text messages to other phones. You can send emails. You can get access to weather events that are happening. You can get weather forecasts like regular weather. If you're a pilot with a small plane, you can get aviation updates and what forecasts. Or if you're a mariner, you can get marine weather forecasts. It's got all the mapping stuff built into it, so you could see exactly where you are. And you can drop a pin wherever you are so that people who are following you or paying attention or want to know what's going on and make sure you're okay can see where you are. This is an ingenious little device for $200. And they've got plans. They got these emergency plans that are as low as like $14 a month. And the unlimited plan, which is the one that I'm on, is $45 a month. But you get no activation fees. There's nothing to turn it on. Plus, all your unused stuff on anything but the unlimited plan, because you don't need it, is rolled over. So if you don't use all your minutes or credits in a given month, you can roll them over to the next month. And you could set this thing up to continuously track you so that it drops pins or pings onto the map at 2-minute intervals or 6-minute intervals or 10-minute intervals or whatever you want, all at no charge. There's a lot of other companies that have similar devices that charge you for every one of those. And you will have peace of mind. Now, here's what I thought, because, here's what I thought. I worry about things like natural disasters. We lived through the 2018 earthquake, right? It was luckily no harm, no foul at my house, very minimal damage, everything else. But, it was very worrying to see what it did to the communities around us. And, of course, at that time, boy, I had a real hard time getting some cell phone calls out due to, one, cellular congestion, because everybody was trying to call everybody, and the fact that some of the towers near me had been damaged or taken offline by the quake. And so my first thought was, man, this Bivy Stick is cool because now I can contact, send an email to loved ones, let them know I'm okay, let them know where I am. So not only do I have a Bivy Stick, I've got another one coming for my wife, for her to just put in the glove box of her car. So if anything happens, she can pull that thing up, power it on, open up the app, and send me a message to say, I'm okay. And if you could see the sky, you can it connects. If you could see the sky, it'll work. It's got 5 days of continuous usage on the battery. You can go 5 days dropping 10-minute pins for 5 continuous days of battery life. It's easy to use. They're always rolling out new features, too, by the way. They've got some new features that I can't talk about. I talked about them earlier on, but I wasn't supposed to. My bad. But they got some new features that are coming out that are super cool. And for $199, how can you go wrong? I mean, my peace of mind's worth $199. You could find your local dealers around the state. You can go to satellitewest.com and just click on the Bivy logo there on satellitewest.com. Or you can go through the authorized dealers here around the state, including Arctic Fire and Safety in Fairbanks, South Central Radar on the Spit in Homer, Radar Alaska in Kodiak, Communications North in Seward, and Lundy Marine Electronics in Dutch Harbor, as well as Safe and Sound in Wasilla, Anchorage, and Soldotna. Now, in Wasilla, apparently you got to go talk to Troy. I had somebody send me a message, said, I went over and talked to them. They didn't know what I was talking about. Apparently the guy that handled all the Pivotel Bivy stuff he's left. So Troy in Wasilla at Safe and Sound is the guy to go talk to. But go see it. Go check it out. Go see what it's about. And tell him thank you. I mean, if you're a hunter, a fisher, a snow machiner, a doctor, a truck driver, an Avon lady, a soccer mom, whatever, you could use one of these and go get the information you want right now. For $199 a month, it is what I like to call cheap insurance. The Bivy Stick. Go to satellitewest.com for more info. All right. Thank you for that. Let's, what were we talking about? Oh, we were talking about a bunch of other stuff. That people are not interested, it seems like, anymore in this idea of gun control. They are not interested in laws that don't make any sense to them. Yesterday, we were talking about the chicken registration up in Fairbanks, the animal registration that was being proposed up in Fairbanks. Again, another law that we just don't have an interest in. So what's going to happen? Well, I think it'll be pretty obvious that you'll have massive noncompliance with it. Massive noncompliance. And I think the same thing is going to happen across the country. Now, if you want a sneak peek at this, you can see what Beto O'Rourke is doing down in Texas. You know, his campaign for governor, he's running a gubernatorial campaign down there. It's in serious trouble. And it's in so much trouble, in fact, that he has reversed course on something that made national headlines. Remember when Joe Biden came up and was on stage and was talking about taking people's AK-15s and AR-47s, or whatever it was that he said? And he said, you're going to be my guy on that, right? And Beto O'Rourke said, hell yes. That he was going to come after the AR-15s and other modern sporting rifles if he was elected to the White House. And yet, since then, he has now turned over a new leaf. Maybe turned over a new leaf. Recently, speaking to reporters, he took a question about his controversial stance on guns and remarks made in 2019 about taking away AR-15s and AK-47s, and here's what he said. He said, I'm not interested in taking anything from anyone. Okay. What I want to make sure that we do is defend the Second Amendment. Oh, okay, so you've gone from, I'm going to take your ARs and your AKs, but now I'm flipping that stance to say what I'm really doing is I want to make sure we defend the You use that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. Then he goes on to say, this is the weird part, I want to make sure that we protect our fellow Texans far better than we're doing now, and we have to listen to law enforcement, which Greg Abbott refuses to do. He turned his back on them when he signed that permitless carry bill that endangers the lives of law enforcement in a state that's seen more cops and sheriff's deputies gunned down than in any other. Okay. Wait a minute. We want to make sure that we protect our fellow Texans far better than we're doing now. We need to listen to law enforcement. I mean, are this the same party, the same guys that's been talking about how we can't trust the police and how they need to be defunded? But now we need to listen to them? Because permitless carry, by the way, the vast majority of law enforcement officers across the country are in favor of concealed carry laws or, in allowing citizens to exercise their rights. Thank you. And it is mostly the sheriff's associations, the unions, the political hackery organizations are the ones that are usually against it. So on the one hand, he said, I'm not interested in taking anything from anybody, but permitless carry? No. You've got to beg the government. Please, sir, may I have the right to defend myself against footpads and malcontents? Only if you pay us. Oh, I'm so happy to pay you to exercise a right. I thank you so much. So now he claims he wants to defend the Second Amendment, and in the same gasping breath, he says that our rights to keep and bear arms, that means criminalizing carrying a gun without a government, without the blessing of the king. So really, I guess I gotta ask, are Texans that stupid? Are Texans really going to buy into? I mean, and it wasn't Tom Knighton over at, Cam Edwards over at Bearing Arms writes about this, and he's like, wait a second, it wasn't as little as like just a few months ago. He said he wasn't going to be backing down from his message on guns. That he wasn't, November 15th of 2020, said he wasn't going to be backing down for his call for gun confiscations. And here we are 4 months later. Well, I don't want to take anything from anybody. I just want to make sure we protect the Second Amendment because it's... Really? Man. I mean, are they going to buy that? I mean, first of all, what a weird way... he should have just ridden this all the way down because I know his own base is not going to be happy with him because they want to see more gun control. They want to see more gun confiscation. And I don't think the Republicans or the independents who really think about it are going to believe him. I mean, especially when he's taking pot shots at the constitutional carry. I mean, what? Well, I've changed my mind. I've clearer thoughts of the things because I need to get elected. But are they really going to buy into that? Really? Does he really mean it? Does he really? I mean, so then the Dallas Morning News interviewed, it was going over his comments as the presidential candidate and how his comments as a presidential candidate would play into his run for governor. And so then they interviewed some of the gun control activists in the state of Texas, and they were like asking them if they were okay with the idea of him flip-flopping on his position. And they were like, oh, well, every solution should be on the table. I mean, if you're taking the temperature in Texas when it comes to guns, mandatory buybacks have no chance in Austin, We tend to talk about issues that work in Texas. I don't think removing guns from anyone would be something that could happen in Texas. Then why are you fighting for it? And why would he come out with that idea from the very beginning? I mean, politicians, man. It's just like they make my skin crawl. And then Joe Biden. Oh, Joe Biden, the Muppet in chief. He is going on and on about gun violence. Did you see his speech in New York? Where he's going on and on about how, first of all, last week we talked about it with the freaking you can't buy a cannon kind of thing, which, that the Second Amendment doesn't allow you to buy a cannon, which is completely false. The Second Amendment doesn't allow you to buy weapons of war, which is completely false. I mean, it doesn't matter. That's all right. But he goes on to talk about all the violence and the increase in violence and all this other kind of stuff. Interestingly enough, my friend John Lott has broken this down, and we're going to talk about that here in just a moment. And we'll give you some real statisticals for you to check out. All right, we're going to be back with more in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show. Phone lines are open. The Pivotel call-in line at 433-3150. 433-3150, powered by your friends over there at Pivotel and Satellite West. We're going to be back with more. Your phone calls. Chris Cheng, Top Shot champion, will be joining us in hour 2. And, of course, we're going to finish up today with Willie Waffle. So we'll be back with more right after this.
We're broadcasting live through a series of YouTubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
This is politicians, man. Politicians. Did anybody even discuss the animal thing at the assembly meeting last night? I didn't see it on the agenda. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. After I left the show yesterday, I was so agitated that I just quit worrying about it. Let's see. O'Rourke doesn't have two brain cells to rub together. Do you think I'm going to chip my super chickens? Do you think I'm going to chip my super chickens? Are you guys trying to get me all spun up on the chicken thing again? Because, I could. I could get all spun up about the chicken thing again. I'm wondering, anybody actually hear what happened? I suppose I could. I don't subscribe to the Fairbanks Daily News Miner, but I suppose I could take a look to see if there's even something in it, because you can't read anything on there without paying them $1 million. Home values, multiple animals die in North Pole barn fire, unnecessary war, industry spokesman, kick off, blah, 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 blah. Fairbanks and Red Cross, Stephen Down. Yeah, I don't see anything here about the assembly meeting, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. News, politics. See if there's anything. Industry spokesman, clean nuclear power option. Nope, I don't see anything. I don't see anything in the news miner about any of that. So, call Jimmy up north. So Biden people say if you speak the truth, you are a terrorist. Yeah, I saw that. I saw that piece about how misinformation is really a sign of domestic terrorism now, which is ridiculous to me. Again, the answer to speech that you don't like or don't agree with or believe is false is more speech. That's what it looks like. Looks like there was a reconsideration of a previously defeated ordinance, says Brian. Okay. Thanks, Ryan, for looking that up for me. I appreciate it. That's why I crowdsource this stuff, because I can't do everything at once. Okay. So here's the part where I ask y'all, what you guys doing this weekend? What's everybody doing? I am going to be, well, I already know what I'm going to be doing. I'm playing, we're starting a new campaign in D&D for my kids, my family, my wife, myself, and most of my kids are going to be playing a new D&D campaign, which I've been working on for 2 weeks in my spare time. It's been fun. That's going to be amazing. I can't wait for that. And then I'm also going to be watching that new show on Amazon, The Reacher. Reacher is the name of it. Because as I mentioned to Willie last week, I've read some of the books from Lee Child. And while the movies from Tom Cruise were okay, I'm really looking forward to see what this, I can't remember the guy's name. I'm really looking forward to see what his interpretation is going to be. So it's going to be fun. Chris asks on Twitch, 5e? Yes, I'm running D&D 5e. 3.5, and that was just way too much math, man. Way too much math. I like how they've simplified things down in 5e, and it makes it a lot easier to play, and I enjoy it a lot more. Although I guess they're coming out with a new rule set. I just read in passing the other day, they're coming out with a new rule set, apparently in the fall or something. And I don't know. If it ain't broke, don't fix it at this point. That's all I'm saying. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But yeah, 5e is what I run on my table. In my table, I run 5e and nothing else. 12th man on YouTube says, I just watched all 8 episodes of Reacher the other day, and I recommend it. And it's gotten some great reviews. So I'm really looking forward to it. Last time I played, I think it was version 2 before the D20 edition came out. That may have been even earlier than that because I was rolling with a D20 back in 1986. So I don't know. I don't know, Michael. Lots of problems in rules as written. I know some people say that, but, the rules are basically guidelines. I just make a decision and move on. I don't, again, it's a game, and it's supposed to be fun, and the rules are there. And as written, yes, occasionally there's a verbiage problem or something, but I've just never had that problem. I just never had that issue with it. We'll see. Maybe that's what they're trying to address in this change. I just read the headline. I didn't actually read the whole explanation. But, yeah, they're supposed to come. I don't know if it's going to be 6th edition or 5.5 or what they're going to do, but it's a whole deal. Yeah, I know. There's a bunch of D&D nerds in the chat room. What are you guys going to do today? All right, we got more coming up. Let's jump back into it. Phone lines are open. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Let's do it. Okay. Welcome back to the program. It is the Michael Duke Show. It's Firearms Friday. We've been talking about headlines and more. We're also got gun Q&A open, so we thought we would open up the lines and see what you guys have to say. Of course, that's powered by our friends over there at Pivotel and Satellite West. We're going to dive into that. We'll do that first. How about that? See what you have to say. Good morning. Who is this and where are you calling from?
Good morning, Michael. This is Ron in North Pole.
Hello, sir.
Well, I just wanted to bring up something that has been catching my ear for the last couple of weeks. Have you heard of an organization or outfit called End Family Fire?
End Family Fire. I can't say that I have.
Well, at any rate, they have been flooding the airwaves recently with a tremendous emotional appeal, talking about the use of firearms and suicides.
Okay.
And what they have done is taken essentially isolated incidents and making a mini drama out of it on the radio. And I think what I'm getting at is that it appears that these folks will stoop to no depth to forward their agenda. If they can't do it with regular firearms owners, they're trying to appeal to those who have experienced suicide by firearms or
right.
Know someone who has. And it's just, it's revolting. That's all I can say.
Yeah, End Family Fire is a movement to promote responsible gun ownership, a partnership between Brady and the Ad Council. So the Brady campaign is one of the big supporters of it, and the Ad Council, which means that it's the Ad Council usually generally is a big radio campaign deal. Protect your family. It's a shooting involved in an improperly stored or misused gun in the home that results in death or injury. Unintentional shootings are all forms of family fire. Okay. Well, yeah, I can see this. I mean, at least I will say this, Ron, at least they are admitting that the lion's share of the, this gun violence that they keep talking about is suicide. But I guess what I miss about this most is that if people have decided to end their own life, there are a multiplicity of ways that they could do that. And in fact, you're really probably not going to slow them down much. They say, well, the firearm makes it so easy and so accessible. But yet in Japan, where they have one of the highest suicide rates of the civilized world, there are no firearms at all. Those people, they do everything from throw themselves in front of trains to walk into the forest and just starve to death. I mean, they They do that all the time. So while I think it's laudable to say we need to address the mental health aspects of this, the Brady campaign and the End Family Fire thing seem to really be pointing and saying that it is the guns' fault. If we just didn't have these guns available, that these people wouldn't do these things. And I think that is, I think it's irresponsible, to say the least.
Well, I would add that in line with what you just said, man is in fact a tool-bearing animal, and if you take away his most effective tool, he will resort to the second most effective.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when you look at that is, I think that's 100% right. Now, they are advocating on their website, I'm looking at their website right now, they are advocating for safe storage, which, okay, great. I think safe storage is a good idea as long as it is not mandated and enforced by some kind of governmental edict. Trigger locks, a good idea. A cable lock, all that stuff's good idea.
Well, I would hearken back to a quote of Colonel Cooper's, if you can't reach it, your training is wasted. True,
which is one of the reasons why I've always trained all my kids from a very young age about guns, and I don't necessarily have this problem. And I think if more people took an interest in the very beginning with their children about firearms and took them out and showed them the violence of what firearms can do, the devastation that a firearm can bring, and especially you do so in no uncertain terms of, you see that watermelon you just exploded, you see that jug of colored water that just went, exploded on the thing. Now imagine if that had been your sister or your brother or your friend who came into the house and you were playing with these guns and this is what happened. That kind of straight talk. We need more of that more than anything else.
Well, I would quote a famous radio host, keep your booger hook off the bang switch.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Keep your booger hook off the bang switch. I'm going to get T-shirts made one day.
I don't know where I heard that, but figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
okay, you take care.
I appreciate it. Have you been hearing this on the radio? Is that where you've been hearing this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and it's it happens. I listen to the radio in the morning because I have to get up and let the dog out and feed the dog and that sort of thing. So
right.
I don't know if it's throughout the day, but it certainly is in the morning hours.
Okay. I was just curious, being that it's a combination between the Brady campaign and the Ad Council. The Ad Council puts out all those PSAs, and a lot of radio stations run them. So I was just curious. Okay, well, thank you, Ron, for bringing this to my attention. I hadn't even heard about this yet.
Okay, all right, you take care now. Bye-bye.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much. 433-3150, 433-3150. Look, suicide is heartbreaking. But again, to point at the gun and say this is the reason we're suffering from all these suicides is a red herring. And I think it masks the problem, and really it doesn't do us any favors. Because we're not addressing, that's one of the reasons like organizations like Walk the Talk America, I think, are so important. Because here you have a bunch of pro-gun people who have partnered up with mental health people to say, we need to deal with the underlying issue here. When the vast majority of deaths in America, something like 65-68% of them are suicides, that we should be addressing that, not the access to the firearm or the tool that they use to commit the suicide, but the fact that they are having a mental health crisis enough that they want to kill themselves anyway. That's really where the issue is. If you keep focusing on the guns, you're not going to fix the problem. Because the gun is not the problem. The gun is simply a tool, an expression of what's going on inside them. They will find another way. And of course, again, this is just part of that whole disingenuousness. We were talking about this before we went to break. Joe Biden in his speech talking about this surge in violent crime that's happening across the country. It's a surge in violent crime. And he has decided to focus on guns, right? Guns are the problem. Ghost guns. and these guns and assault weapons and weapons of war and all the things that he's saying there. But again, my buddy John Lott wrote a piece over at Fox News that talks about this. The fact that he is attacking as solely a gun problem is part of the problem. But the gun-first approach, says Lott, ignores a basic fact. Over 92% of violent crimes in America do not even involve a firearm. So while you're seeing this spike in violent crime, you got to realize that the vast majority of it has nothing to do with firearms. Biden talked about, working to take these shooters off the street as quickly as possible. But no, over 92% of the violent crimes don't involve the gun. Why not promise to do that for all violent criminals instead of just for those who have guns? Lott pulls up the Department of Justice's National Crime Victimization Survey and shows that in 2020, which is the latest year available, there were 4.5 million rapes, robberies, and aggravated assaults, and 21,000 murders. Of those rapes, robberies, and aggravated assaults, only 350,000 of them involved a firearm, and only 13,000 of the murders involved a firearm. That's 7.9% of violent crimes that used guns. So, again, focusing on what is really not the issue, the answer seems to be what we need to do is punish all these law-abiding citizens for the actions of very few. And, of course, they never talk about the weak-kneed prosecutors that you see in many of these large cities. You never see that a lot of these people are basically a revolving door, these prosecutors who have gone out there and they're letting these people off, with a warning, right? Or people who are repeat offenders going in and out of jails. They never look at punishing the guilty. They always want to find something else to anthropomorphize it and make, it's the gun's fault. It couldn't possibly be Johnny's because Johnny was an angel. So anyway, it's interesting discussion. All right, up next, hour 2, we've got Chris Cheng, Top Shot champion, will be joining us, and Willie Waffle, plus some phone calls and more news. The Michael Dukes Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Okay. I asked my 6-year-old grandson, says Laura, something about the guns in his house. He said, "We don't have any guns in our house." I called his dad, concerned about his answer, and his dad said, "He gave you the correct answer. It's no one's business what's in our house." I love that answer. I love that answer. All right. Laura says, I just got in. What happened in Facebook and what's going on with the chickens? Boy, everybody's all wrapped up about the chickens today. Apparently, according to what Brian has done, Brian was doing a little research for me. He was crowd searching. I had some crowdsourcing going on there because I hadn't heard what was going on. Apparently, it was a reconsideration of an ordinance that had been previously defeated. So, apparently, I guess it didn't go anywhere. So, we'll see what happens with that. But, I mean, I didn't see anything in the news or anything else, so I got worked up over it, and I'm glad it's, I mean, I enjoy it every now and then to let my hair down and just kind of let fly and let loose, but you don't want that to happen every day, right? I mean, you don't want to see me all worked up and, talking and all the different voices that are going on in my head. That's kind of what happened yesterday. If you missed it, I kind of was listening to all the voices in my head and not filtering them the way that I should. All right. I was hoping the chicken showed up, says Laura. Because we were advocating at the end that people should just show up with a bunch of chickens and goats and just let them run loose in the assembly room. Assembly chambers. That would be great. That would be great. All right. Jeffrey says those BS PSAs have aired between 6 and 8, and we're paying for them. Well, I guess the ad council is federally funded, but you're not paying for airtime on that. I will tell you that. That's a little inside baseball for radio, Jeffrey. Those things from the ad council are their PSAs, their public service announcements, so the radio stations don't charge for them. And it was a great show, said Brian. Carlene and Kodiak left laughing. Oh, that was so funny when she was laughing. I mean, I just love that genuine laugh that Carlene has. And yeah, that was a lot of fun. It's good to let your hair down every now and then and talk about those things in a variety of ways. But yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy with yesterday's show. Again, I threw everything out that I was going to talk about, and we just focused on that whole thing. I mean, this is what we keep coming back to, though, right? We keep coming back to the fact that the people who are supposedly our elected leaders and are supposed to be our servants are, I mean, it's like they've lost their way. They've all come down with a politician's disease. We know better than you how to do X, Y, or Z. We know better than you. And that's a real problem. I mean, it is a real problem. And it's the one thing that, in my opinion, seemingly drives the whole thing. It drives the whole school bus. Are all of those people wandering around thinking that they somehow know better than us? 12th Man says, never mind that it was the government mandates and lockdowns during the so-called pandemic that caused a lot more people to commit suicide. I mean, yeah, did you see the increase? Have you seen the statistics and the numbers now for the increase among young people, including, well, especially women or girls, females, whatever they identify as, females, young females during this last 2 years? Have you seen the? I mean, it's staggering what's going on with all that. I mean, we are social creatures. We need to be around each other, and all those lockdowns and everything else was just off the chain. Such a tough increase on all that stuff. Okay, let's see. What are we? We're about 2 minutes away from returning to the radio here. Oh, hey, I got one line on hold. So let me go over here, and I will get the caller's name and where they're calling from, and we'll start off the show with them in the next hour. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Michael. How you doing? It's Fred in Rhode Island. How you been?
Well, hello, Mr. Fred. How's life in the smallest state?
Well, the sun's out, the snow's melting. I guess you can't complain about too much today, I guess.
No, definitely not. Don't do that. All right, well, Fred, we'll hold on the line, my friend. We're going to come back on the radio here in just a hot minute, and we'll put you on right at the beginning there. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back to you here in just a moment. So don't go. I got to turn this up. This is there. The Michael Duke Show. Okay, look, I was just starting. I was just trying to set it right so that people on the stream could hear us a little there. Okay, well, 1 minute out. I hope you're planning on having a good weekend and enjoying yourself. I'm going to play way too much D&D, watch way too much Reacher, probably have a little whiskey. I've got some whiskey that somebody gave me that I haven't cracked into yet, and I'm looking forward to trying it. It's a new one from Ardbeg that I haven't had yet, so I'm looking to try that. So I'm looking forward to a good weekend, just a little bit of relaxation, mental health and stress, just to kind of let your hair down. So I hope that you have something just as good planned. I hope you do. Let's jump back into it. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like and share this show. Like and follow the show page. Subscribe and hit the bell on YouTube. Let's do it.
Whoa, buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
The Michael Dukes Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Dukes Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Here's my rifle, this is my gun. This is for fighting, this is for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday, your chance to sound off on issues of a two-way nature right here on the Michael Dukes Show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or translator, and around the world to the rest of the folks out there at MichaelDukesShow.com on the internet, also on Facebook and YouTube and Twitch TV and everywhere else. We're everywhere. We're omnipresent. And just to prove that I'm not lying to you, joining us on the phone right now, all the way out from the smallest, cutest little state, Rhode Island, Fred joins us for his weekly call, listening out there. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Hi, Michael. How you been? You know, cutest? Really?
Well, you know, I just...
Well, I guess
I mean, when Alaska could cover, like, the entire middle of the continental United States, and then you look at Rhode Island, I mean, it's kind of cute in comparison, I'm sure. It's a beautiful state. I've seen pictures, so...
There are parking lots in Alaska that are probably larger than the state of Rhode Island. So.
Well, the borough that I live in, which is essentially the same as a county, I'm assuming. I assume you have counties. The borough that I live in is probably twice the size of Rhode Island. So I mean, it is what it is. You know, it is what it is.
I'm sure it is.
So
anyway, the reason for the call, two points. One of them is the whole thing with the suicide and the End Family Fire, their whole little campaign. In Rhode Island, we have this thing going on where people want to commit suicide in Rhode Island in the last couple of years. I guess the most popular way that they've been doing it, we have this bay that runs right up the middle of the state. And there's 4 main bridges that connect the whole thing together. And what they do is they on the bridges, they drive up, they park the car, they get out, and they jump off the side of the bridge. And it's like maybe a half dozen cases a year. We don't get a lot in the way of suicides here.
Right.
But when we do get, usually that's the preferred way to go. So there are other ways as well. But primarily the bridges are the ones that have been making the news. To the point where they want to spend $26 million to increase the size of the fences on the side, which they have fences to prevent this, but I guess they climb over them and
they
find a way around the fence, and over they go. So it's so they're going to spend $26 million to increase that. But like I say, like the man said earlier, if the primary method doesn't work, they're going to find a secondary method. So,
right. Well, that was my whole point about Japan, Fred. I mean, Japan, they have got a high suicide rate. I mean, it is on a per capita basis, it's much larger than most Western nations. And yet they have, literally no legal firearms in Japan at all. So they're out there finding all kinds of ways to commit suicide. And so the problem here, again, is not the gun. It is the mental health issue that is behind the idea of taking your own life. And by focusing strictly on the gun, they're doing a disservice to these people who are struggling. Let's talk about the mental health aspect and let's talk about the mental health aspect without stigmatizing it. That was the other thing is, if we're going to talk about mental health, we've got to make sure that we also don't stigmatize these people because the problem is that if they're afraid that they'll be treated differently or they're afraid that they'll lose some of their rights, maybe their Second Amendment rights, etc., they will be reticent to get the help that they need to get things fixed.
Well, it's funny. You mentioned the whole thing about mental health. the whole thing with in the Japanese society, it's a very high stress society. As you will probably already well know, they're under tremendous amount of pressure to perform, to succeed, to not fail. And when things don't, when things kind of go south, in whatever they're doing, whether it be, engineers or, business in the business world over there, things go south, they take it very, very hard, very, very personally and very hard, in failing.
Right.
Or not succeeding, not meeting their expectations. And, it kind of pushes them over the edge, which you kind of see the same thing that's been going on with the pandemic in this country. All of a sudden, we got this business closings and this and that and stress, and the supply chain is being interrupted, and because you get nitwit in the White House, and every time he opens his mouth up, everybody's blood pressure goes up 100 points at least. So, with all this going on, the stress level in this country goes up, and what follows? The suicide rate goes up as well.
Right.
Not that I know anything about mental health, but still, it's I think you can connect the dots there, and you can see a path along the way.
Well, exactly. I mean, we've thrown all convention and all kind of stability into chaos with all the lockdowns and everything else, and it put an additional amount of stress. Then you add, business closures, failures, money problems, loss of jobs, change of careers, all that onto us. And, of course, you're going to see our suicide rates go up. And, of course, the kids who have been affected the most because they've been taken out of their stable, comfortable environment of a daily school thing and the social aspect of it, it totally throws all that stuff into a complete tailspin. I use Japan, but Japan is hard because, they have a whole different culture over there that is based in their culture for many, many years. Probably the last millennium has been based around the idea of honor, face, obligation. I mean, there's a whole different cultural thing over there. Like you said, there's a tremendous amount of stress to where if you do something that is a failure, where we may say it is a failure and as a way to think and move on, the Japanese, they see it as a loss of face. And in some cases, that is, it's better to die than to have to face that loss of faith. There's a whole different culture there. But again, the point is that we need to, instead of blaming the tool, we need to find a way to stop that. That's how we need to do it.
You're spot on there. The other point I wanted to make is, you talk about gun control. Gun control, the way I see it, is nothing more than it's an international globalist conspiracy is all it is. I mean, that's it's not just in the United States, it's worldwide, and there are a handful of people who are pushing the buttons and controlling things. And it boils down to either ad campaigns that, well-financed, and well-organized. They want to sit there and they want to basically, stomp out all the liberties, but they're going to start with the Second Amendment because that's the one that's going to be their toughest obstacle to overcome. And once they get rid of that, the rest of it's going to be a pretty slick ride downhill.
Right.
So I think that they're doing everything that they can to promote that. And they get, like I say, they got people, who promote ads, they sit there and they push the whole campaign. And of course the Democratic Party, they're all in lockstep anyway, for the same purpose. It's not just gun control and firearms. It's a lot of things. Except First Amendment, and you can use your own imagination and run down a list as to what they want to take away from us and our liberties, our civil liberties. But it all starts at the top. It all starts with the globalists, your Soroses, your Bloombergs, your Taylors, your Gates, you name it, across the way there with the Rothschilds over in Europe, and a whole bunch of others, that collected together to push this narrative. And I think people have really got to pay attention to what's going on, not only in this country but on a worldwide scale. That's the way this is going. And this also applies into elections where they want to sit there and rig elections. They say they don't do it. I don't believe a word of it. I think they've got their fixes in. So
yeah, we've talked about this in the past. I mean, there is, again, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier, that these people believe, these elites, political elites, the nouveau riche, like I said, and whether they're in Europe or in America or wherever, they all seem to believe that they somehow know better than us, that we are, that they know how to run the world. And if these pesky people would just get in line and stop fighting back, that they could make it a utopian society. And of course, the fact that we're armed is an impediment to their idea of what they think society should look like. So of course they're going to fight back.
Well,
That's what is going on.
I think we've seen what their society wants to look like. All you have to do is take a look at Washington D.C. today. I mean, that place is like daily turmoil and chaos, and everything they do, is just inside out. So
yeah,
All
right, Fred.
What more can you say there?
Thanks for calling in, my friend. Thanks for listening out there in Rhode Island. We appreciate you being part of it today.
Okay, you take care, Michael.
All right, 433-3150, 433-3150. That's 907, by the way. I've been noticing more and more that more of my phone calls have been failing because I keep forgetting to put the 907 on the front of it. But yeah, you got to dial 907-433-3150 if you want to call in and join us. In just a few moments, we're going to be joined by Chris Cheng, Top Shot champion from season 4 of Top Shot. And we'll see what he has to say. I don't even know what we're going to talk about yet. I don't even know what we're going to discuss, but it'll be a fun discussion. He always brings a unique perspective to that. And then Willie Waffle will be joining us from wafflemovies.com. He'll be coming on in the final segment of the show today, and we're going to dive into it and talk with him about all the good stuff. So that's what's going on right now. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Top Shot champion Chris Cheng, and I guess hold the line. Hold still. Don't go anywhere. That's right, don't go anywhere. We're going to be joined by him in just a minute, and we will be back with more. Top Shot champion Chris Cheng will be our guest. The Michael Dukes Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we're in the break right now, getting ready to be joined by our guest, Top Shot champion, Chris Cheng, who's going to come in and talk with us about, like I said, I don't know what we're going to talk about today, but it's going to be fun. Whatever it is, we always have a good time when Chris and I get a chance to chat. But I always, of course, I have to give him the right phone number to begin with. Sorry about that, Chris. I forgot that I...
Good morning. Yeah, no problem. I'm here.
I made some changes, and am trying to make it a little bit more efficient and easier, and so I forgot to give you the new number to call into. So how's it going, my friend? What's happening in your neck of the woods? Let's get a little bit of pre-show stuff done here.
Yeah, January was a really great month. We had SHOT Show in Las Vegas, which is the firearms industry trade show. I was there for the entire week, and it was just really wonderful. On the downside, I did catch COVID, which is no surprise, and it was like no big deal, sort of like mild flu symptoms, and, bounced back pretty quickly. So, but, SHOT Show was incredible, and it was just amazing just to see the energy and also the business activity that was taking place. And I can touch upon a little bit of that, when we go back on the air.
Okay, great. Well, I'm looking forward to it. We've been talking a lot about this attack that the president seems to be wielding against all this, this increased violence, and then counterpointing that with John Lott's numbers to say, well, look, 92% of this violence has nothing to do with firearms. Maybe you shouldn't just focus on the guns. Maybe you should focus on the criminals, which I think you probably could identify with there in California. And we could talk a little bit about that as well and get a feel for that as well.
Yeah, there's also the San Jose, California, restrictions that came down the line.
Right.
And that was like maybe 2 weeks ago. So that's another.
Yeah, let's talk about. Let's see if we can chat about that as well. So we'll guide the conversation and do all that. And then we'll be out at a hard out at 37 after. So I'll let you go. But other than that, everything's good. You're healthy. Everybody else in your family's healthy. And you made it through your COVID, so it's all good.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm building my own private shooting range in the mountains. So that's another
Oh, wow.
another very fun personal life update.
Did you have to do that on your own private property? I'm assuming you have to do all that.
Exactly, but I've got the land and got the money, so let's do it, right?
Right. You can't tell me what to do. I own this land.
Yeah.
I can do whatever.
Exactly.
We know it's never as simple as that, but that sounds like fun.
It should be as simple as that. So.
Well, it should be. I mean, when I was a kid, growing up at my parents' house, their house the way it was is that the driveway was tiered. You drive, the front of the house was on one side, and then you drive down and around, and the garage was underneath, and that left this big bank against the back of the yard. And we used to shoot all the time into that yard. I mean, my dad would set up his bench there, and we'd sight in rifles and doing everything else. And I mean, it was easy. We didn't have to beg anybody's permission to go. I mean, we were on 8 acres in the middle of 8 acres, so nobody really knew. But I mean, we didn't have to go beg permission. I think that's kind of the way it should be. As long as you're safe and not hurting anybody else, who cares?
Exactly, 100%.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's not the way that a lot of the politicians see it. For your own safety, they're going to take care of you. All right. Well, Chris, hold the line for me here. We're about 60 seconds out. We're going to be rejoining the radio here in just a moment. Folks, Chris Cheng, Top Shot champion, Season 4 is our guest, also the Go Big Show. Don't forget about that. And, of course, he's got his book. His book is called Shoot to Win, Tips, Tactics, and Techniques to Help You Shoot Like a Pro, which is available on Amazon.com. And we should get some autographed copies of those, Chris. We ought to get a handful of those to give away sometime in the future. So
yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah, we should do that. We should think about that. All right, 30 seconds out. Chris is back on hold. We're going to be back with more. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like and share this video. Like and follow the show page on Facebook. Subscribe and hit the bell on YouTube. And hit the follow button on Twitch. I mean, we're everywhere. We're multicasting, baby. Come on out and join us. Let's get this thing done. And let's talk about guns. Here we go. All right, welcome back to the program, The Michael Duke Show. Joined now by our monthly guest. He is a man of many talents from Silicon Valley, coming out of the computing world, which is kind of unusual for people in the gun culture, but he does it with aplomb. He is a Top Shot champion, Season 4 champion from the show Top Shot. He's also been on the Go Big Show, and he dabbles in many pro-gun circles. It is the one, the only Chris Cheng joining us now from TopShotChris.com. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good morning. Yeah, doing great here, and always excited to be on the show.
Well, it's always good to have you, my friend. I really appreciate you taking the time out to do it. So let's see. What are we going to talk about today? I want to talk first. I know you just came back from SHOT Show, which it was my pleasure to go to SHOT Show about 10 years ago, and that was an amazing experience. I really loved it. But you just got back, and, of course, in times of pandemic, it's interesting to see how all that stuff goes down. But give us your impressions coming out of SHOT Show. Give us your SHOT Show report.
Yeah, so SHOT Show in the weeks leading up to the firearms industry's largest trade show, there was a lot of controversy. There were major manufacturers, who were pulling out of the show for due to COVID concerns and I don't represent a manufacturer, but I at least understand their concerns, which was, if they were to bring, 150 to 200 employees to this trade show, and if they bring back COVID to their factory lines and their factory workers get sick and have to call out, then that would wreak all sorts of problems with production. And right now we just ultimately delay, right, consumers like you and me from getting, products. And so anyway, right, so there's just a lot of swirl in the run-up to SHOT Show with, some major brands pulling out. And attendance was just naturally going to be down because of COVID travel restrictions and Nevada state mask mandate. But once we were there, it was totally fine. And, the mask mandate was one of these things where, how do you really enforce the mask mandate with 43,000 convention attendees?
Right.
And, the tens of thousands of, hotel casino guests that are just mingled, amongst everyone. So, it was sort of one of these like best effort kind of things that I think, the hotel and the casino were trying to do with the mask mandate. So, everyone just use your own best judgment, right? And, even though attendance was down about 50% off of its attendance peak, from a few years ago, the SHOT Show also increased the square footage by something like 10 or 15%. So there's this interesting dynamic where there were more vendors, more square footage, but less people, which actually made for a really great show because it wasn't very crowded in a good way. Though it was busy. Like it was a good energy, like good busy, but it wasn't like shoulder to shoulder trying to get from one booth to another. And typically when you show up at a booth, there can sometimes be 8 or 9 people in front of you waiting to either talk to a sales rep or a marketing person or to see a particular new firearm or product, and you're literally just sitting there, waiting your turn. But we didn't see much of those lines, at SHOT Show this year. And one of the last things to maybe mention is, a lot of SHOT Show attendees are often looky-loos in the industry, right? They're not necessarily there to transact in business and, place orders, for the year. They're just literally there to just sort of touch the guns and oogle and ogle, but they're not like contributing, right, to the exhibitors.
Right.
But this year was totally different because the people who went to SHOT Show were the serious entities who wanted to do business. And so a lot of great work, a lot of great business got done. And one quick example, I was talking to one firearms manufacturer who's a medium, small player moving into the medium, kind of size space. And he was telling me that normally most of his orders that are placed at SHOT Show are all domestic.
Right.
And he said this year he's received more international orders than ever before. And so what he was hypothesizing is because, some of the big players, pulled out, that you've got these international distributors and also domestic, distributors and dealers who are now going to other booths, right, at SHOT Show and giving more attention to the smaller guys, which, I hear that. It's like, that's great. The big guys don't need any help. It's more the small and medium-sized guys who are trying, build their brands. And so he had a very successful SHOT Show, and I heard multiple variations of that story throughout the week.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds exciting, and quite honestly, if there was 50% less attendance, I know that when I went to SHOT Show, and again, that's a dozen years ago, 10, 12 years ago, I mean, it was crowded, man. If you were claustrophobe, it would not have been a fun thing because there gets to be a lot of people in there. And being a looky-loo myself, not really there for ordering, but more for reporting on new stuff and doing things like that, it is it would have definitely been enjoyable. But I'm glad to see the industry is still moving forward and doing well. And I think really, quite honestly, during the pandemic, I mean, the firearms industry really kind of flourished. I mean, between the George Floyd stuff, the unrest, the uncertainty surrounding COVID, what was the government going to do? Was there going to be more social unrest because of the lockdowns and everything else? This was really, this was probably a good time to be a gun manufacturer overall.
Oh, absolutely. It's during the whole pandemic, the firearms industry and community, we've grown by leaps and bounds. There's an estimated 12 million new first-time gun owners in the past year and a half. And that's a tremendous number. 12 million first-time gun owners who have come into the community is a tremendous number. And then, of course, right, you had 12 million new gun owners, and, of course, they want ammunition. They want targets. They want to go to the range and, right, go take courses. So it's been adding, it's good pressure, right, on our ecosystem of, right, building and growing that next generation of gun owners.
Yeah, no, we saw that. I mean, and really in 2020, I mean, that was the largest single NICS background check year ever recorded, and last year was close to it. And so I think, you're seeing more. And, of course, as you're reporting, 40% of new gun owners in 2020 were Black Americans. You had a lot more females. We're becoming a more diverse culture, and I think that's all being shown. And I think from what I've seen in a lot of the reporting of SHOT Shows over the last couple of years, that's starting to be reflected in a lot of the vendors and the products and the offerings that are coming out there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen upticks in different minority groups. So Asian Americans, we saw a 43% increase year over year of increased Asian American gun ownership. This is from 2019 to 2020, and we're going to see the 20 to 21 numbers hopefully soon here. And sort of some, bigger, jumps in some of the other demographics. And, like you're saying about products that, are being offered, and also the way that some manufacturers are marketing to different demographics, like, people of color and, the LGBT community. We're starting to see this continued shift towards marketing towards Americans of all walks of life, which is really exciting. And we are building upon the massive success that the industry has seen reaching out to women, right? Because that effort and initiative started a little over 10 years ago, and the firearms industry is slow to change like many industries, but seeing the huge successes and gains of marketing and reaching out to women. We're taking a lot of those same tactics and approaches and applying them to, racial demographics, to religious demographics, and et cetera, et cetera. And ultimately, the message that we want to send is that the Second Amendment is for everyone, regardless of your race, your color, your creed, et cetera. So it's we're definitely moving in the right direction, and change is slow, right? This is going to be the kind of thing where hopefully, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, the face of the American gun owner will more accurately reflect the diversity that already exists in our country.
Absolutely. Got about 4 minutes left here, so let's talk a little bit about your hometown there, your home state of California. They have been making some wild changes and been receiving some pushback. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so, a few weeks ago, the city of San Jose, California, the city council, they voted to adopt this first-in-the-nation ordinance that would require gun owners to pay a fee and to carry liability insurance. And so, they're right. The political messaging is basically that, taxpayers shouldn't have to bear the burden of gun violence, and therefore they believe that gun owners should bear the financial burden of gun violence, and that just does not make any sense, right?
Right.
We're basically taxing law-abiding, responsible gun owners who are not committing the crime.
Right.
The city's taxing law-abiding gun owners to pay for the crimes that other people are committing, which is just absolutely crazy, right? And this is obviously already being challenged in court, and and as we know, the problem with gun control measures, especially ones that come out of California, the rest of the country pays attention, and there are already lots of cities who are considering doing something very similar to what San Jose has done, and obviously, like, local governments are empowered to move pretty quickly, right? They don't have to deal with the Senate and the House and a president at the local level, right? It's like, hey, it's just your local city council person who can literally, in a matter of days and weeks, push legislation through, whether it's good or bad. So everyone should be paying attention to what's happening here in San Jose, California, with this carry liability insurance ordinance that they've that they're trying to push through and overly burden responsible gun owners with these additional costs.
It's the kind of thing that just makes me scratch my head, because it's kind of like saying, well, there's people out there who are alcoholics and drunk drivers, and so what we need to have happen is anybody who buys alcohol needs to show a new card or some kind of insurance, so in case something happens, or because of what is happening with these other people, they need to pay for the sins and pay for the costs of drunk drivers and all this other kind of stuff. It's exactly the same logic, and it would never fly on that front. But because it's guns, and especially because it's California and they're kind of antithetical overall to guns, it's easier to do. But it is the same kind of argument.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, you know, the thing that irks me in particular about the San Jose ordinance is, you know, you'd be required to pay a $25 fee, just a generic gun owner's fee to the city, and in addition to, right, having to carry liability insurance. And for me, all of these are essentially taxes.
Yeah.
Right. And the notion of taxing a constitutional right is offensive, and it's un-American, right?
Absolutely.
We don't tax someone, to exercise their First Amendment right, their, et cetera, et cetera. So why should the Second Amendment?
Hey! Don't give them any ideas, Chris. Don't give them any ideas. Hey, thanks for coming on board. Hold the line, folks. We're out of time. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Sorry about that, Chris. We were running up against a hard break there.
No worries.
But you're right. I mean, you're right. I mean, we're not – it'd be like saying before you climb on Facebook, you have to fill out this form and pay a $25 fee, and then you have to carry insurance in case you offend anybody or your words incite something. You need to do that. I mean, people would be up in arms. I mean, what if they had to register journalists? What if you had to be approved by the government? What if you had to be, I mean, all these, but because it's guns and everybody vilifies guns as instead of taking the people to task, the actors, the bad actors, and making them pay for their crimes, they blame it on the tool, and then they make all the law-abiding citizens pay the burdensome cost of the actions of these very few people.
Yeah, and at its most core, it's like, why should I have to pay the government to exercise my right to self-defense? That just, right, and sort of it shouldn't even matter, like, well, what weapons I'm choosing, whether it's a gun or an axe or knives or whatever. But yeah, it's a totally topsy-turvy, concept, but it just goes to show how little a lot of most anti-gunners care about individual rights, right? It's
right.
It's this misguided philosophy that the anti-gunners are doing this quote unquote for our own good, and that is very elitist, self-serving, also just incorrect and ineffective. I mean, at the end of the day, it's also just totally ineffective, right? Charging gun owners an ownership fee and forcing us to carry liability insurance, that's not going to make a difference.
Well, they care about the fundamental rights that affect them, and because they don't believe that they don't like guns, they don't believe in guns, they don't believe, hey, only the police should have guns, but at the same time we should defund the police. I mean, that kind of stuff. Anybody that can hold those two completely opposing thoughts in their head at the same time, I mean, I think they may need a checkup from the neck up to begin with, but they only care about their fundamental rights or the ones that they're exercising. Everybody else can go to hell, and that's part of the problem we have here. So you're right; we need to be watching this. Now there is cases that are already pushing back against this. What's your prediction? You think that it's going to hold because it's California, because it's the Ninth Circuit, because it's the Supreme Court, the California Superior Court? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we've had many great conversations about our judicial system over the years here, and I always look at this. First, I just look at the end game, right? The United States Supreme Court, and obviously we have a 6-3 majority, on the pro-gun side of things. And so if this ever makes it up, that far, I mean, I would expect that this would get crushed at the Supreme Court level, but obviously, working up, into the local and state, judiciary, the Ninth Circuit it's known as a circus because
it's
a lot of crazy judges on the Ninth Circuit here. So I would expect, most gun control initiatives get held up at the Ninth Circuit, but the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is kind of a different story. So yeah, it can get pretty dramatic, for anyone who loves following the twists and turns of all the judiciary happenings. So I mean, ultimately, I don't think this is going to stand. But it's probably going to be around for, I would say, probably at least the next 4 or 5 years in some shape or form. It's going to expand. This concept of charging gun owners fees, local city fees, and forcing us to carry liability insurance. I'm 100% sure that concept is going to spread to other cities.
Well,
which is really unfortunate.
Like you said, it's the blueprint for other places to pick up on, and I'm very troubled by it. So I'm with you on that. All right. Well, Chris Cheng, Top Shot champion. You could find his book on Amazon or on his website at topshotchris.com. It's called Shoot to Win. And he'll update us next month on all the new stuff that he's getting into as well. Chris, thanks so much, my friend. I hope you have a great month, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks as always for having me on, Michael.
Appreciate you coming on board. Thank you, sir, and taking the time out for this little podunk radio show all the way up in Alaska. We appreciate that. All right. We're going to be joined here in just a moment by Willie Waffle from wafflemovies.com. He's going to be coming on board. I'm waiting for that phone to ring here in just a second. We're going to get in with him, and we were going to do the weekend movie review. We missed it last week, and we're gonna have some good times for sure. So we're gonna get into that here in just a moment. I guess that's it. It was a pretty good week overall. I mean, we had some. I definitely. Yesterday's show was good for me. I appreciate you guys tuning in yesterday. We kind of let our hair down a little bit and got a chance to talk about some real truths, I think. And I enjoyed that. I'm going to try and see if we can do a little bit more of that throughout. It's not something that I can just gin up. It has to happen a little bit spontaneously. I have to get a little worked up over something. And I've always tried to remain pretty calm about it because I hate the shouting radio show. I don't, Mark Levin's a genius, but I can't listen to him because the screaming just bothers me. So but I want to find something like that in the future that we can keep all that stuff together and enjoy it together. All right, phone's ringing, flashing. I see my timer's down. We got to go. The Michael Dukes Show, Common Sense Radio. Well, it's the show that nobody cares about and nobody listens to, and it doesn't really matter, where the points don't count and everything's made up. That's what this show is all about. It's Friday, and we're finishing up our Firearms Friday segment by switching gears over to something fun. That's the Entertainment Report with Willie Waffle. Speaking of people who don't get listened to, geez, Willie Waffle. Hey, my friend, how you doing?
Well, there's no pressure now. I mean, I might as well just say anything I want.
Nobody's listening anyway, man. Nobody's listening. It's fine. All right. Well, I was just joking about that because I sent Willie a Babylon Bee article, which is all satire. The Babylon Bee is all satire. But basically, they were talking about the movie that nobody's seen has now been nominated for the award show that nobody listens to or watches or cares about. It was just funny because it was all about and again, nobody even cares about it. So the Oscars have happened now, right? Or are they still waiting?
The Oscar nominations were announced today.
Okay.
And then, or not today, sorry, this week. The Oscar nominations were announced this week, and the show will be in March. So we got plenty of time to hear all about the nominees
We got plenty of time to talk about the movie that nobody cares about. Okay, got it. I just wanted to be sure we were on the same page.
Yeah, and I'll just say, headline from the story, Spider-Man did not get a nomination for Best Picture.
Of course not. Why would that? It doesn't make sense at all. Why would it? All right. Well, let's hit into the news first. Where do you want to start? Should we do the juicy stuff, the tabloid type stuff, or what do you want to do?
Oh, this is my favorite story of the week. We're starting with this one. Warner Brothers is getting sued over Matrix Resurrections, the big Matrix sequel that came out in December.
Right.
Yes, the producers of it, Village Roadshow, have decided they are suing Warner Brothers for releasing the movie in theaters and on HBO Max the same day, alleging this is the reason the movie tanked at the box office.
Okay, so having seen Matrix Resurrections, I can tell you that No, I mean it was okay. It just was not. It was fun to revisit, and it was a fun twist that they put on everything. And I don't know if you've seen it, Willie, but it
stunk.
Well, I mean, I thought it was fun for the callbacks. Those of us who are real Matrix nerds, it was fun for the callbacks, and it was interesting. But it was not. I mean, it was not trilogy material. It was not trilogy level material. It was okay. It was fun to revisit, but that was about it. It's like a one and done thing.
Well, and Village Roadshow is arguing that that Warner Brothers used the Matrix for reasons other than making money for Village Roadshow. So this was originally supposed to come out in 2022,
right?
But Warner Brothers pushed it up, moved it to Christmas 2021. Village Roadshow says that's not because they wanted to make a lot of money. That's because they wanted to use it as a last-ditch attempt to drive up subscriptions to HBO Max in December. And it just wasn't, according to them, it wasn't a good environment for movies to be released. Now, I want you to remember, Matrix Resurrections made $37 million in the environment where it wasn't good for movies to be released.
Right.
Spider-Man made $750 million.
Yeah. I mean, note to self, maybe the movie just sucked. I mean, and I just had to laugh because, this whole thing was such a, in so many ways, it was a tongue in cheek and it was a cut back at Warner Brothers. And it was just, there were so many weird things that went on. I mean, it was fun to watch only because, like I said, it was a throwback. I just watched the other three movies. I intentionally watched all three trilogy movies. And then the next day on New Year's Day, I watched the Resurrections and I was like, well, that was okay. I mean, it was interesting. It was an interesting take the way they did it, but definitely not something that I'm buying to put on my shelf. You know what I mean? It was not a keeper, so to speak. Not that any.
Well,
not that
it's on HBO Max. You don't have to buy it.
Right.
Oh wait,
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Not that anybody buys movies anymore, but if I was still buying movies, that's what I would have done. Although I will say that my movie collection has come in handy a few times with power outages or internet outages or whatever. I mean, people won't know what to do when they lose their internet. It's like, what do I do? Well, maybe you could talk to each other. Well, I couldn't do that,
Oh God, that is just unacceptable.
I know. So anyway, what's the status of this? Is it going forward?
It's moving forward. It just started. Just was filed, and let's see what happens because Village Roadshow. Note to self here as well. You kind of need Warner Brothers.
Kind of can't bite the hand that feeds you on that. All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the little blue people. First of all, your email said the Serfs are making a comeback, and I'm the Serfs. Who's the Lord? I want to know if they're the Serfs. Who's the Lord?
Oops.
But no, it's fine. I figured it out. I thought that was the literal guy inside me laughs at that. But the Smurfs. I mean, do we really need another Smurf movie? Is that what we really need?
Well, no, we don't need it. I mean, God forbid, we do not need it. But there are companies here who want to make money, and they have come up with a new idea that will catapult the Smurfs to a whole other stratosphere, my friends. They have decided that on December 24th of 2024, what you want to be doing is not sitting down and reading 'Twas the Night Before Christmas to your family. It's not gathering around the old Yule log and drinking hot cocoa and eating chestnuts roasted on the fire. No, they think you want to be sitting in a movie theater watching the Smurfs musical.
Of course. It's funny you should say that these companies all want to make money, and so that's why they're, here's an idea. I don't know if anybody in Hollywood's listening, but come up with an original idea that's good and then make a movie about it and then merchandise everything. It's just a thought. I mean, it's just a thought.
Well, that's what a guy named George Lucas did in a galaxy far, far away.
And
it worked out okay.
He's still making bank on everything from that deal. Well, I mean, again, a weird time for release. I mean, first of all, it's a kids movie. Which is weird. There's not a lot, like you said, not a lot of kids on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day who are going to go out and let's spend Christmas Day watching the Smurfs at the movie theater. Oh, that sounds like fun. It's just weird, but hey, somebody's got to make these kids these movies, I guess.
Well, in Christmas time, traditionally, in the before times, as I like to call it, was always a big box office draw. I mean, some of your big blockbusters would come out around Christmas, and you saw that this year with Spider-Man.
Right.
I mean, Spider-Man did fantastic,
Right.
and that's kind of what you would expect at Christmas time. And so they're thinking, well, there's going to be a lot of kids who have time off in that week between December 24th and New Year's Day, and well, they're all going to want to get the toys for Christmas,
Okay.
and we're going to all want to have them, watch the music and sing along to the songs.
Okay, all right. I guess we'll
Oh
see
no,
what
it's
happens.
horrible. I can't believe I'm going to have to watch another Smurfs movie.
Yeah, I know.
They're horrid.
This is the downside to your job. That's all I'm saying. This one and 50 Shades of Grey, both not going to be good.
And that's what I always tell people, all my friends were always like, oh, you're going to go see Batman before everybody else. It must be rough. And that's when I'm like, yeah, and I got to watch the Smurfs too.
All right. Speaking of remaking ideas, Disney, the House of Mouse, always looking for one to milk a buck whenever they can find it. They have now resurrected the old Nicolas Cage trope of National Treasure, and are going to make it a series on Disney Plus.
And I'm just going to say, and I know this may put me in the minority, and I'm probably opening myself up to a great deal of mocking. I liked National Treasure movies. I liked them.
Oh,
I enjoyed them.
I thought they were fun. I enjoyed them.
Yeah.
They're a good romp. They're not, it's not like they're really taking themselves too seriously. I mean, it's just kind of fun. So yeah, I'm down with it. And unfortunately, they're not bringing Nick Cage back, who I thought that would be an amazing thing to do. I mean, small screen stuff. He could pay a few bills, some more back taxes, and be ready to go. But instead, they're bringing Catherine Zeta-Jones in.
Yeah, and I think they're still trying to find the Nicolas Cage kind of figure in the series, and Catherine Zeta-Jones will be playing, according to them, a billionaire black market antiquities hunter.
Okay. Well, I mean, look, Nicolas Cage he's ready to work, folks. I mean, he'll
ready and willing.
He'll be in anything. I mean, that guy will be in anything. And like I said, he's got some bills to pay. I mean, he's, so you could probably get him real cheap.
Well, and they're making this whole series down in Baton Rouge, and he likes Louisiana. He's done a lot of Louisiana-based movies.
He hasn't done a lot of Louisiana-based movies. All right. Well, I mean, who knows? Maybe one day. What's the buzz on this? I mean, good, bad? What? I mean, what?
I think there's a lot of excitement for it. I think because, the franchise was such a big deal, because this will be a nice series. Disney Plus has had a great deal of success with their series, but granted, they haven't done anything beyond the Marvel and Star Wars universe. And I think that's going to be kind of the challenge for them. Can they launch something that really is not based in one of those universes? And,
right.
and they've had some successes. I mean, they did the Mighty Ducks series with Emilio Estevez, but that's facing a lot of challenges because he's left the series over various issues related to COVID and how they're handling themselves on the set. John Stamos had a really good series, that I liked a lot, but I don't know if it's coming back for another year. So this is something that they're hoping will take off, or they'll just say, hey, remember, we got the Obi-Wan Kenobi show premiering in May, and you'll want to see it.
Yeah. Well, I hope the Obi-Wan Kenobi show is now. I haven't watched all of the Book of Boba Fett, but I was not super impressed with the first 3 episodes, I think is what I got into it. And I said, I'm going to wait for the rest of it to drop. And I hear that it's kind of, it's not The Mandalorian. You know what I mean?
Well, here's the deal, though. And I'm not giving anything too big away.
Okay.
It really does become The Mandalorian around episode 5.
Yeah, no, I heard that.
Yeah.
And I heard that every consecutive episode was better. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess by the last episode, if it's fine, it's good. And then it leads right into Mandalorian. So, I mean, okay. But, I mean, they got to up their game. They've got to make every show has to be as good as The Mandalorian, in my opinion, if they want it to have staying power.
Yeah, and just to give you a little insight into the Book of Boba Fett, my sister was like, yeah, I saw the first episode and I kind of fell behind and maybe I need to catch up. And I just said, you know what? just start with episode 5. Just watch 5, 6, and 7.
Okay.
That's all you need.
Okay. Maybe I'll save myself a couple hours then. And I'll tell you what I'm going to use those couple hours for. I'm going to go watch Jack Reacher. Jack Reacher.
Yes.
I have not seen it. I was going to watch it this last weekend. My wife wasn't feeling well, so I didn't because I wanted to wait for her. And I am just like, everybody is like over the moon on this thing.
It's really good, and it did so well last weekend in its premiere weekend that Amazon Prime has already signed up for season 2.
Oof. Nice.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to watch it. I think it's going to be fantastic. I'm excited about it. I want to watch it. All right. We just got a couple minutes, so we're going to skip right over the Jennifer Lopez movie because Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah, exactly. This movie is going to premiere on Peacock and in theaters on the same day.
Yeah.
It's somewhere Jennifer Lopez's agent is probably having a conniption.
Yeah, no, I know I'm having a conniption and I'm not even watching it. But I do want to know about Death on the Nile. That's the Hercule Poirot movie from Agatha Christie, Kenneth Branagh. It's his second time out playing the great Belgian detective. We got about a minute and a half here. Tell me about it.
I really wanted it to be a lot better. I think that, this is a great example of a movie that just has some pacing problems. So, we really are kind of picking up. We're seeing the great Detective Poirot on vacation. He's sailing down the Nile River, but there's a murder committed on board.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a murder committed on board, he is required to solve it.
Oh, yeah.
He can't just say, you know what, I'm on vacation.
Right,
okay?
Right. You can't invite Poirot to a party without expecting there to be a murder, so just don't do it.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the other problem. Is he a serial killer? Does a murder happen everywhere he shows up?
Pretty much.
Yeah. But, I think the issue here is it's kind of dull. It really does take a little bit too long to develop. It takes us a little too long to get to the mystery. They're spending about half the movie trying to lay down the groundwork, and I think that they could have taken that time and really examined all the other characters and their motives and why they're a suspect. I feel like they kind of shortchanged a number of those characters, and it's a pretty darn good cast. I mean, we're talking Annette Bening, Gal Gadot, Letitia Wright, and the guy who's going to surprise you, the guy that you're really going to like, Russell Brand.
Oh, man. Well, I like Poirot mysteries anyway. I didn't see the other one, but I think I'm going to watch this one. -1 to 4 waffles. Where are we at?
I'm going 1 waffle. I think they give Branagh all the best lines. That's what happens when you're the writer and the director.
Yeah.
And I will give them credit. I thought that was a very interesting kind of look at learning more about him in the early parts of the movie and kind of where he came from and how he developed and where that grand mustache came from.
Nice. Hercule Poirot, Death on the Nile, 1 waffle. Willie Waffle, thank you, my friend. Good to talk with you.
Hey, you got it. Next week, we talk about Marky Mark and Spider-Man, Uncharted.
I can't wait. Folks, we're out of time. We'll see you on Monday. Don't forget, we got a lot more coming up. Then, Monday morning. Thanks for being part of it and joining us, The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Be kind to one another. Love one another. And live well. We'll see you. Have a great weekend. I suppose I should have gotten a waffle review number for you on the Jennifer Lopez. Is that like a -1 waffle or what? I mean,
I'm trying to be a little kind.
Wow.
But yeah, it's in the 1 waffle territory, my friends.
Yeah.
I think Jennifer Lopez, it is a silly idea. Okay, of course she plays this major musical star, and her fiance cheats on her, and she finds out when they're having a grand, publicized on the stage wedding, and so she dumps him and she marries some schmuck out in the crowd, and that's Owen Wilson.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And will they maybe fall in love? Is it possible for 2 people from 2 different worlds to fall in love in a movie?
Everybody's got to work, Willie. Everybody has got to work. That's all I can say.
Especially Owen Wilson. He's got bills to pay too.
Yeah, he's definitely got bills to pay. All right. Well, a disappointing movie weekend, but that's okay. Reacher. That's all I'm thinking about right now. This weekend is going to be my Reacher weekend, so
do it.
I'm looking forward to it. All right, my friend, thanks for coming in. We will see you next week.
That's a promise.
Thank you, my friends. All right, out of time, folks. Gotta go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.
The Mike